Walking without skin. Managing adversity with vulnerability.
Pain is wrong, every inch of my heart like an open wound. I can't go on, I'll drown if I don't stop the bleeding soon.
Justice isn't healing. Justice is a man-made thing. It's law, and it's not always right. You know, sometimes innocent people get found guilty, sometimes guilty people are let go, and it's not always just because you're telling the truth that that's what you're going to get in the courts of law. I wanted people to shake their foundation and think about what does it mean to be healed.
Where can I find some protection to prevent this ongoing infection? I'm walking without skin. Walking without skin.
You are listening to Walking Without Skin, the show where we encourage our guests to be vulnerable, to share their voices with authenticity, to tell their stories from the heart. We will talk about hope and recovery, about overcoming loss, changes, challenges, and adversities. We will walk without skin.
How will I know when it's safer? When every step feels like sandpaper. I'm walking without skin. I'm walking without skin.
And here is your host, Lois Wagner.
Hi, I am Lois, your friend for forgiveness and the creator of Walking Without Skin. I have a book with the same title, Walking Without Skin. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting to Celeste Low. Hi, Celeste.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Celeste and I go back a while. We've been chatting for about 2 years now.
Yes, we've come a road.
So Celeste is a wife and mother, grandmother, a healing guide, trainer, activist, biker, and a brand new author. We'll talk about that in a little while. So Celeste is a founder and director of a non-profit company called Optimystic Bikers Against Abuse. Celeste brings the biker code to all her endeavors, fulfilling her life's purpose by dedicating herself to the promotion of connecting humanity and healing. So before we get into your work and your book, Celeste, can you tell me what the term walking without skin means to you?
Well, I actually love it, because I think the thing is I talk a lot to people about wearing masks and trying to fit into society with a mask on. So making yourself like everybody else. And walking without skin for me means like dropping that stuff and just being what's underneath, just being that and being free to be who you are without all the extra additions we put on to make people accept us.
Great, thank you. So dropping your mask.
Yep. Just letting it go, because I think that's one thing that society has become, like, if you want to call it plastic, right? It's like, I'll just be what everybody else is, I'll just do what everybody else does. And even though people organize themselves into different types of people, they still are trying to fit into some sort of mold, you know? And this thing about just being yourself and having integrity and being free to say what you think and be who you are, that is not a common thing. Although people say it is a common thing, it actually isn't, because most people are just trying to fit in. Just want to be loved by everybody.
So true. Celeste, what led you to do this work? What prompted you to start the journey that you are on?
You know, it's a really interesting question, because a lot of the time I get asked things like, why did you choose to do this, what you're doing? Or people tell me, why don't you do something else? And I think it's really strange, because it's not like I chose it. I didn't sit there and go, okay, you know what? I want to work with broken people every day and I want to see all these horrible things. I don't want to, that's not something that you choose to do. But I think when I stepped into healing myself, so after a process of going through kind of what everybody says you should do, go see a psychologist, maybe see a psychiatrist, go to church, you know, find all these answers. And I started to see that those answers weren't working for me. And then I went and did my own research and talked to people and gained knowledge and try to apply that knowledge wisely. I don't know if I can be called wise because, you know, I make a lot of mistakes, but you try to apply that knowledge, that I realized that the kind of help that is out there is really great in the short term. But in the long term, I didn't find my way to myself through the normal kind of process of what you do, like sit and talk to someone, or, you know, try to find it through spirituality or whatever. And that it was a combination of a whole bunch of things. And so that's why I felt like I didn't want other people to feel like me, so lost and going, well, I'm doing what everybody's telling me to do, so why isn't it working? And giving people an option for something that really works. But I think the real reason was I was so alone. I felt like I was the only person in the world going through what I was going through, and I felt terrible, and I didn't know where to turn. And the people I did turn to didn't understand where I was at and what was going on with me. And I just felt that if other people were like that, then it's only right that I've got so much joy from healing that I should be able to pass that on to someone else. So it's kind of like a pay it forward thing. But we were discussing it the other day, and I don't think it's something that you can just walk away from, because it becomes so much a part of you, trying to just give people a sense of the victory that you have, that it's really difficult to just leave it.
So you got a victory from your abuse. What were you healing from?
Well, you know, it started from childhood. I had a lot of things in childhood, and it's, you know, in the book, but a few things. So we had death, and we had divorce and adoption, all sorts of things in the family. And then I was sexually abused as a child for about 6 to 7 years. So my memory is not 100%. So I couldn't give you the day that it started and the year and the date. And I couldn't give you the day that it ended and the year and the date, right? But I know it was that period. So when I got to university, I had the option to get free counseling, and I went for that. And I went for that because I was in a terrible place. I was behaving extremely badly. And that's another thing that people don't understand, is that often survivors behave badly because what they used to be able to survive in what they were in is not actually socially acceptable or even like good manners or good for them. So I was self-sabotaging terribly and all of that. And I went into psychology. So I was trying to heal, you know, sitting with a psychoanalyst. I did that for 4 years. I was trying to make sense of my childhood. And I thought I had done that. But after 13 years later, fast forward, stepping out of a domestic violence relationship, I realized that it hadn't worked. And I would be lying if I said that it had. So then I had to go and find out what went wrong and why am I not healed. And so this led me onto the journey that I'm on now. And I've had a lot of people that have come in and taught me so many things. And I think that's one of the reasons why you stay as a healer and trying to help other people heal, is because not only do you see them heal, but you also heal from everyone that you work with. So you grow all the time. So I wouldn't say like I've had victories, big ones, little ones. I think I'm victorious in the sense that I live as balanced a life as can be expected if you struggle with CPTSD, and if you have issues that are unresolved, because I think healing is something that lasts your lifetime. New things happen all the time. So, you know, it's an ongoing journey of getting victory out of what happens to you. And I don't, you know, I think one of the main reasons why you stay doing what you're doing is because you keep growing. And if you're not growing, there's a problem. So if you're stagnant, you've got a problem, because then you should be growing all the time. You know, it's an old adage, you learn something new every day. That's how I feel.
You definitely do. So tell me, Optimystic Bikers, what is it and how does it operate?
Okay, so it started with my website. Can you believe it? Started with my website. and my website started picking up. I had this little website. The whole idea was to pay it forward in a kind of controlled way, you know, that it didn't infringe on my other work that I was doing and all of that kind of thing. And it started to pick up. And at that time, we were biking. My husband's been a biker since he was 13. I dabbled here and there through the years. And then when we got married and got together, you know, obviously I went deep into the biking. And we were looking at the website going up. It was kind of like a coming together of things. And we wanted to have the kind of bike club, but we wanted it to help people. Like, we wanted to not just like do a run and then give people money. We want to do hands-on, help people and be visible and, you know, be into it and make sure that people come out the other side okay. So it became that. And it became, let's start an NPO and a bike club. So we are now an NPC, an NPO, and a motorcycle club. And we're really small. People think we're huge, but we're actually not. We're a really small group of very dedicated, trained people who are survivors, mainly. Nearly all of them are survivors from something, not necessarily sexual abuse, but they are survivors of life, right? And they've all journeyed, and they're all journeying, and they're very dedicated to helping people understand that we can't be isolated. We need to be connected. So that's what the club does. And we have the organization and the club. So we've got bikers and non-bikers, and, you know, and we all work together. And our whole point is to get through the crisis and get people to heal. That's the point. The point is not the crisis management. The point is not the justice. The point is the healing. That is our main aim.
I've seen that you also attend hearings and court cases and the like.
Yes, most people come to us in crisis. So people come to us with, there's a court case, or they are trying to get divorced, or they're trying to get a protection order or something like that. So what we do is we hold their hand, we guide them through that whole process. We try to minimize secondary traumatization and keep them on their feet while they're in crisis. And in that process, we get them to understand that after that, there's still a whole healing journey to go, and that justice isn't healing. Justice is a man-made thing. It's law, and it's not always right. You know, sometimes innocent people get found guilty. Sometimes guilty people are let go, and it's not always just because you're telling the truth that that's what you're going to get in a court of law, right? So we help people negotiate that and understand that justice is something different to healing.
Well, a good outcome in the courts certainly helps with the healing.
Yes, of course, because the thing is, what I try to do is, because I know I'm not guaranteed, like if we go into a case and we know we've got a 50-50 chance of winning anything we take to court. That's the bottom line. It depends on a lot of outside factors, outside of the survivor and outside of the facts. It depends on how good is the defense attorney, how good is the prosecutor, how good are these people on the stand, you know, how much evidence do we have and how much evidence can we use? So, I mean, that's a whole legal thing. But what I try to tell people is this is your option. You get to stand there and speak your truth in the presence of the person who hurt you, in a controlled way. You get there to tell your truth. And at the end of the day, you know that that's the truth. Whether or not a magistrate tells you that's the truth or not is actually beside the point. So that's what we try to tell people, because at the end of the day, I've had a lot of people who've gone the whole route and come to me after justice, after someone's been found guilty, and said to me, yes, they felt really, really great for about 3 days. And then it was like a non-event because they still felt so broken.
I remember my court case. I actually felt quite sorry for the defense attorney, because it was a cut and dried case. The guy was as guilty as hell, and he had to defend this guy. And at the end of the court case, he actually came and he apologized to me. He said I had to do my job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, you know what, I would really like to, maybe that's a good thing, to sit down with the defense attorney and ask them how they cope. with having to do stuff like that as a job. But, you know, that's their thing. I think we need to have tighter regulations around what is okay to do to someone on the stand. And that's been proved, right? And people don't understand that going through the process of justice is a long and it's a slow process, and it doesn't always have the outcome that you might be expecting. And then sentencing can be very disappointing.
As you say, it's about the healing, it's not about the judgment. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
So I've been threatening to write a book for years and years and years. I do have a little collection of poems that is out that I wrote back in the day, you know. So, and it didn't sell very well, let's just put it that way. But maybe now people would be interested in it. So this book is a journeying book. It's not so much an autobiography, although it has a huge autobiographical section in it. So I tell a lot of my story, but not all of my story. And one of the reasons for that is telling my story has fallout. So there's a lot of people who could get really badly hurt with parts of my story. And some of that is in here. I've tried to avoid it though. And the reason for that is I think that those people have been hurt enough, right? So it was very difficult to write it in a way that I felt was fair, in the sense that I was telling my story and not telling other people's stories. Because our lives are so interconnected, it's a very difficult thing to do. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is explaining how I got to be who I am today, and what my thinking behind being who I am today is. So there's a whole section on grieving, and there's a whole section on self-sabotaging, that kind of thing, you know, and what does it mean to be gaslit, and those issues. And it's small and it's short, and I wanted it that way because I think people need to understand that you can never put a person's life into a book. So maybe there'll be a second one, who knows? But I try to do it in a way that you can see my journey rather than my story.
That's a brilliant way of approaching it. I told my story, and I think, although it's interspersed with the reflections and the healing, I think it can be quite triggering to people who've had similar experiences.
Oh, yes, I must say that. I've been surprised by the people who have already got a copy. I've been surprised by the things that they've said. Like, for instance, I started reading this book and I had no idea what kind of journey it was going to take me on. And I think that is exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to shake their foundation and think about, what does it mean to be healed? And I really appreciate that. Or people saying, you know, this gave me so much to think about. Or I can see myself in you, or you cleared up an issue for me. Those are things that I think are really important. And because the work that I do is very much hands-on, and I can only talk to so many people at a time, I think it's really great to have a book out there where you can actually reach more people, and they can get something of what you're doing in a book.
Well, I wish you well with your book.
Thank you very much.
So, Celeste, have you got an experience that you can share with our listeners of where you've worked with a client that has really touched your heart and perhaps even changed the way that you operate?
Yes, absolutely. I think I can cover that. I think I've walked a journey with one of my clients, and I think we're nearly going for 5 years, that her case has still not been resolved. And the amount of traumatization that she's got from people who were supposedly trying to help her, I think that is the hardest thing, that you are already trying to overcome what happened to you in this relationship. And then the people that you are going to for help are using that to make money out of you, or to get the shine out of you, or something like that. So that has changed a lot about how I approach things, because I'm very careful about who I refer people to and why they get referred. And I'm very careful about telling people that we're going to get a resolution quickly, because there isn't quick resolutions when it comes to the Department of Justice. It could take, what looks like a clear-cut case could take 4 years. What looks like a really complicated case could take a year. So you really don't know what's going to happen with the other people. So you have to be very clear about who you are and what you're going to be helping with. So for me, it's quite interesting because I get a lot of people who phone me for strange things, right? Like they'll phone me to go and beat up somebody. We don't do that. Like, let's just make it clear. We don't do that. And or I've had a case where someone didn't want to leave, like they didn't want to leave. They just wanted to stay safe and be happy where they were. And that really blew my mind. But in another sense, it made me think about what is actually healing here. What is the right thing for them? And I've seen a lot that we want to tell people what the right thing is for them. And we can't do that. We have to give them the options and let them choose what is the right thing for them. And that has been really an eye-opener when sometimes someone says to you, but that's just not what I want to do. I don't want to go down that road, which you are sure is the right road for them. So it's about them and not you. I think that's one of the things that I've learned through difficult cases. And also people just going like, oh, isn't that finished yet? And I'm going, no. If only it would be that quick, that we could just say it and then it would be over. But it's not like that.
But in terms of wanting to stay with you, the safety factor of hanging around with a bunch of bikers, it must give you a lot of self-confidence.
I think that it's that. And also I think within the first couple of hours of knowing us and getting to know other people in our organization, they realize that we're just people. We're just people like other people, and we're just trying to we actually just want to help you. The intimidation factor is nice for when you go to court and you need to stare down someone, and that kind of thing. And also people just love the machines, right? They just love the noise and the power and that kind of thing. And that's really great. But at the end of the day, I think what gets to people is that they see, and I think that's one thing about bikers, like bikers, we are who we are, and what you see is what you get. And I think that's what they appreciate. And I think that's one of the major reasons that they stay. And another reason is because when we say we've got your back, we've got your back. We're not going to dump you, leave you, lose you. If we say we're here for you, then we're going to be here for you. And that doesn't mean that it's always an easy ride, because sometimes people go back to their abusers. Sometimes they get other information and they go off on a different path, but they always know that there's no hard feelings and they can always come back and we'll always be there. I think that is something. So the biker code is something that people really feel connected to.
Can you share something from the biker code?
So basically the biker code is like having a moral code. So it's honesty, integrity, brotherhood, charity. I'm going to forget some of them because I'm on the spot, right? Loyalty, honor. We have that code. So that's how we live. We live that out and we believe in it. And we think it's really important that we have that. So when we say, I'm going to be here for you, we mean I'm going to be here for you. If we say, this is the truth of your situation, we're not going to come and sugarcoat your situation for you. And I think that's the main thing, that people see people who've got a strong, solid basis in how they live out their lives. And I don't think that that's a common thing anymore. I think that people are flighty. Society is flighty. They jump from one ideal to another ideal, and there's no real solid foundation. So having a solid foundation of this is what I believe and that's it is a good thing, and I think people are attracted to that.
So if you could have a billboard on the side of the road, what would you have on your billboard?
If it had to say like optimistic or Any of that, and then billboard.
Anything. What would you have?
Connection is key. I think connection is key is really good. I think people also need to understand you need to choose who you're connected to, right? But I think that isolation is the biggest problem with today's society. Connection is about connecting with another person on a different level. And without that connection, that's why people are struggling so much. I think people are way too isolated. And I think abusers use that. And the reason why we're seeing so much abuse is because you can abuse people who don't have anyone to defend them or to build them up or to teach them that they're worth more than that. So for me, connection is key.
Excellent. As you know, I've got my Brave movement with the objective of reducing toxic masculinity and violence and bullying and harassment. In that context, what does the word brave mean to you?
For me, brave. I think brave is being who you are despite having this pressure on you to be somebody else. I think brave is standing in your truth and being who you are, and that it's okay. You know, that the people who are not going to accept you, not everyone's going to love you, right? Not everyone's going to like you. But when you're brave and you are who you are, the right people will fall into line with you. And I think that's the main thing. Be who you are and live your truth.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice. Can I think a second? The best piece of advice I've ever been given. I think that the best piece of advice that I was ever given was that can I start it over? The best piece of advice I was ever given was that when you start to doubt yourself, you need to remember that you were born capable of conquering any challenge before you, and that the answers are inside yourself. You can go to other people for knowledge, you can go to other people for wisdom, you can explore all different ideologies and lines of thinking, but at the end of the day, the answer for you is inside of you.
And we need to learn to trust our intuition, use that gut feel to find the answers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that without teaching people how to be strong inside themselves and to know themselves and to be true to themselves, you're never going to have real connection between people, and you're never going to be able to, can I say, counteract the toxicity, whether that toxicity is masculine, whether it's feminine, whether it's male on female or female on female or female on male, doesn't make any difference. What makes the difference is if you will recognize toxicity if you are strong inside yourself.
What is the best piece of advice you can give anybody who's just faced some of those experiences of abuse? What is the first thing they should do?
I think the first thing they should do is not walk alone. I think they need to reach out and find someone that they can talk to and that they can walk with, because the hardest thing about it is walking alone. And the most difficult hurdle to cross is that first telling. The first telling of this is what's happened to me, and this is the truth of what's happened to me. And I think that people need to understand that they need to tell their truth, not the absolute truth. The absolute truth is a different thing. The truth from their perspective, the truth of what happened to them. When they can speak that and they can walk with somebody, then they will be on the path to finding solutions. Unfortunately, most people try to walk alone. Don't walk alone.
And it's also that truth of how you're feeling, because people are very scared to acknowledge some of those emotions that they are having.
Absolutely. I think fear is the biggest obstacle to healing, right? People will reject me. I'm wrong. I'm scared. What happens if I say this and then I can never get help again? What happens if I say this and it makes my situation worse? I think fear is the biggest thing, is that we're afraid of so many things and we're not taught how to share ourselves in a way that is safe, right? So while I'm saying be connected, don't walk alone, I'm saying be careful of who you share that with. Don't just go out and share it with everybody, because there's people out there who want to hurt you. They are going to hurt you. So you need to look for a safe environment, and it's okay to question people about whether they're safe. You know, you don't have to just believe people. You can build a relationship with someone. You can build, and don't just believe everything that everybody tells you. Use this.
Do you work virtually or only in person?
No, I work in person when I can, as often as I can, because, you know, online there's always a gap. You know, it's just not the same as giving someone a virtual hug is not the same as giving someone a hug. However, we do a lot of our work online because that is the nature of the world that we live in, and because initially it helps people to overcome that very fear that you're talking about. Because when they're talking to the screen, they don't have as much fear as when they're speaking to you in person. And I think people are very, very afraid of being rejected. I think this generation, or the world that we live in today, is a place where people have intense fear of rejection.
Now, where do you operate from physically?
Well, I'm pretty mobile. I'm quite a gypsy, right? I'm a biker. So I operate, generally speaking, from the Northern Cape, from Kimberley. You know, that's one of the places that I'm mainly at. Then I have a second home, not my second home, because I squat. I'm a squatter. I'm joking. I live in Kimberley, and then I live at, I call her my sister. We've been friends for the last 33 years, and I have a place in her home. So when I'm in Johannesburg, I work out of Johannesburg, out of her home. And then occasionally I'm in Cape Town and Durban, and we've got stuff coming up, hopefully restrictions given, next year, where we're going to be doing a lot more in-person work with people, workshops and boot camps and stuff like that.
How can people get hold of you?
Right, so the easiest way to get hold of me is via WhatsApp or Telegram, because I know some people don't like WhatsApp, on my telephone number, which is 071 427 0187. Or if you're international, you put a +27, right? +27 71 427 0187. Or you can get us on our website, which is www.optimystic.za.net. And we spell optimistic OPTIMYSTIC, right? Optimism and mysticism. Okay, so or you can get us on Facebook. We have quite a big profile on Facebook, and believe it or not, Lois, at my age, we are going to start TikTok.
Nothing wrong with TikTok.
And Instagramming as well. So we've got quite a varied platforms, and you can find us on any one of those, and we will get to you as soon as we can.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom on this platform and your book. And I invite everybody to go and seek that book out. Contact Celeste, contact Optimystic Bikers. And you're also welcome to contact me on walkingwithoutskin.com. I offer a free half-hour coaching conversation to discuss your journey of healing. And I invite you all to join us and to fly free.
Thank you for listening to Walking Without Skin. We would love your feedback, opinions, suggestions, and ratings. Please share this podcast far and wide to encourage more people to share their stories with vulnerability and authenticity.
I wanna live. I want